Thank you, Rose. All right. So I offer this prayer that has been given to us by Unity Worldwide Ministries, and it's being shared by ministries across the country. We know that God is love, is a love that has no end, and a power that knows no bounds. God's healing power of divine life is restoring, healing, and revitalizing our world in this very moment. We let go of any fears or anxieties, and we affirm that all are safe, healthy, and protected. We bless all of those who support us in maintaining vibrant, radiant health. We express divine life in all we think, say, and do. We bless our global family with radiant health, peace of mind, and abundant love. And I open the floor for any offered prayers. For the prayers, please indicate the name and the condition for which you would like prayers to be offered. We will rest for a few seconds with that. I'll complete that rest period for that prayer, and then I will say, "And so it is," which invites the next prayer to be offered.
I have one I'd like to offer. Prayers for our friend, Patty Jackson. Patty is an activities director in a senior center, the assisted living center up in Broomfield. And prayers for her health because of her working conditions, and prayers for her well-being.
And so it is.
I'd like to pray for my son Sean and his girlfriend and her family, who all may have the COVID virus, and especially his aunt, who is exceptionally ill right now.
I'd like to
So
offer
it
prayer
is.
for Rose.
Go ahead.
I'd offer prayers for Rose, who's having a tough time healing.
And so it is.
Prayers for our whole congregation in this difficult time.
And so it is. I'd like to offer prayers for all of those on the front line, the grocery store clerks, the distribution channels, the employees, drivers, workers in the warehouses, the nurses, the maintenance people, the doctors in our healthcare facilities. That they may be protected and that they may be vitalized with good health, endurance, and sufficient sleep. And so it is.
And so it is.
And in this sacred space, we welcome in all of those for whom we would like to offer prayers but have not, for those that we have forgotten to offer prayers for for all of those in need, for all of those struggling with concerns about their finances, concerns about food on the table, roof over their head. And for those that do not have the privilege of a roof over their head, that they may be protected. And they may be not just surviving, but moving towards thriving. And so it is. And as we hold this sacred space open and we offer to that sacred space that love which flows through us from the heart of God into our experience, and we realize that we are blessed all the time. And so it is that together we say, Amen.
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 I'd like to share with you our hymn for today. Our hymn for today is I'm Ready for a Miracle. You all ready?
Yes.
Twice through. Oh, hang on a second. Hang on a second. A miracle, ready for a miracle. I'm ready for a miracle today.
For a miracle, I'm ready for a miracle today.
Ready to receive.
My heart is open all the way.
Sweating.
Accept a
Miracle, I do accept a miracle today. Do receive a miracle.
Ready for a miracle. I'm ready for a miracle today.
Change the screen, David.
I'm ready for a miracle, ready for a miracle, I'm ready for a miracle today. My mind got my mind in tune for one, ready to experience one, I'm ready for a miracle today. My mind is open, ready to receive it. My heart is open, open all the way. I do accept a miracle, I do accept a miracle, I do accept a miracle today. I do receive a miracle, I do receive a miracle, I do receive a miracle today. All right, well, that was on me. I couldn't find the piano in my list of participants to unmute, so.
Well, we had Doug for the first two
solo.
then he got cut off.
Did that work? Did you not hear it?
I heard the first part of it, and then I heard everybody else. I said, "Oops, I didn't mute everybody," and so I muted everybody, and then I couldn't find Doug, and then it just
Did you mute the piano or something?
I muted the piano, and then I tried to find the piano in the list and unmute it. So I've got to work on that. Doug, I appreciate your patience with me.
Well, anyone else?
And it was, Doug, it was a little fast. Your piano was a little too fast for us.
No, the piano doesn't have a speed.
Okay, well maybe much later.
The same fact.
We missed Mark and David in their hand gestures.
Yes. And, I would offer hand
no way
gestures.
to know if you can hear me while I'm playing. I'm not hearing anybody, so I'm just playing blind.
Yeah, and that's...
No, we heard too.
That's the same, and that is the same tempo we play it every time.
Yes, it is.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
The problem was the delay, and it's feeling like it wasn't the right speed. Anyway.
Yeah, it's the delay that's the problem. Yeah.
We have some kinks to work out, right? And this is an opportunity for us to practice forgiveness. So,
We're learning that well, aren't we?
yeah, well,
Unity and technology don't go well together.
yeah,
I think maybe the whole sing-along thing might be, in a year or two when the technology catches up. It might not be worthwhile to do it.
and that might be true. Yep.
So be honest, who tried to sing along? Knowing that
we did, but it was just out of sync with us.
And,
But I still like it anyway, so.
Well, when we came here, Doug, we stayed in sync with you, but then you disappeared, so we had to switch over to staying in sync with David because he was the only one who could hear.
Okay. David needs to mute his own mic, otherwise that's why you're hearing the delay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the only way to do it successfully is to not have somebody leading the song.
I think probably by August or September, we're going to have this down pretty good.
okay, well, let's hold that vision, all right?
When David said this was an August gathering, and it scared us because we thought it was already August.
Point your eyes.
That's good. So, who recognizes this?
Sure.
It was the other night.
Yeah, that is a shot taken by. I can't remember the name of the astronaut, but it was as Apollo 8 was making its loop around the sun, or around the moon, caught this image just as the Earth was coming up over the horizon of the moon. And that Earthrise image is considered by many to be, that was taken on Christmas Eve, 1968, that considered by many to be the most important photograph of the early environmental movement. Earth Day, April 22, coming up Wednesday of this week, was the first Earth Day was in 1970, a year and 4 months after this image was taken. But Earthrise, it's, wow, what an impressive sight. Every time I look at it, I just take a deep breath. There are no national boundaries shown on that image. There is in that image a statement that it is the home that we occupy, hanging in the depth of space. It shouts out to us that we need to be its caretaker. And in fact, there is a passage in Scripture from Genesis 1:26. Then God said, "Let us make humankind in our image." Not in my image, but our image. That's an interesting phrase, right? According to our likeness. Not individual, but plural. And let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the wild animals of the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth. Now this was written by someone, right? There are some that say that this was written by God himself, and obviously pointing to the male gender in that statement. But you've heard me talk over the course of the last several years about God being consciousness itself. And as I've indicated, I happened upon a philosophical school called panpsychism, which holds that consciousness is a fundamental aspect of the universe. Just like gravity, just like the electromagnetic force, easy for you to say, the weak force and the strong force, the four forces that physicists deal with and have been exploring now for almost a century, over a century. But consciousness as a fundamental aspect of the universe, God itself. And consciousness being not just something that happens, but rather it is fundamental. It is part of the foundation of the universe. Now, this statement, in my mind, this statement makes a lot of sense in that we are the most mobile of the creatures of the planet. We are the most powerful of the creatures of the planet. Now, you'll notice that I didn't say we're the most intelligent, because that scorecard's still not complete. But wouldn't it make sense that we would be charged, if God is consciousness itself, and we are an avenue through which consciousness expresses in this world, wouldn't it make sense that we would indeed have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, over the cattle, and over the wild animals? Wouldn't it make sense that we are the ones responsible for its upkeep? And I would suggest that we have failed. We have failed on the plastic that's been dumped into the ocean. We failed on the pollution that we've allowed to drain out of our sewage processing and out of our manufacturing facilities and out of the fertilizing of the land, out of the feedlots, out of virtually all of the activities that we take for granted. The food on our tables, the cell phones in our hands, the vehicles that we drive to and fro. Even the electric vehicles have a carbon footprint. And in all of that, we pile on top of that our nationalism, our greed, our self-centeredness. I think that the scorecard is pretty clear that we have failed in that. And for that, I offer that apology. Oh, Momma, we are sorry. So, where do we go from here? How do we right this ship? How do we take advantage of the chaos that we are presently in to influence where we go from here? And I'd like to open this up to all of our participants. What are your thoughts? Where do we go from here? How do we right this ship? How do we take better care of our mother?
We take responsibility for our own actions.
Such as?
Well, recycling what we can. Taking the time to go through it, not just throw it in the trash because it's easy.
Mm-hmm. Clean it before we put it in the recycle.
Yes.
What else?
I say support the full disclosure of hidden technologies and information. The Navy has a patent on free energy now. If we all had that, there would be no reliance on oil, gas, and the others that are not beneficial to the earth.
What else?
Most important, I'd say vote, because so many of us don't vote, and vote the people that are going to support our efforts. And also, don't be afraid to point out to others that are violating that. I mean, you could do it in a kind way, but people guilting them into it. But seeing people throw gloves and masks on the ground are just not acceptable.
What else?
I'd say taking advantage of the opportunities for unity across the globe at this point, because we need it more than ever. And we all have to work together, public health agencies and all of that. And if we can form some strong unions around the world with global sharing, we can also form the same philosophies around the care of the earth.
Okay. What else?
Speaking of unity, remember that all life on Earth should be included in that, I think.
Okay.
I think that doing community gardening and working in your community, just staying real local, is a very global, rewarding event.
I say that stop producing plastic bottles and produce only less.
Okay. What else? There is perhaps one of the most obvious things that we're all having to deal with right now.
Stay home.
Stay home. I look back on all of the times that I have just gone out, you know. Oh, gosh, I'm bored. Let's just go out. Increasing my carbon footprint right there. What else?
Have outdoor programs so people get more in tune with the outdoors and not technology, just to have a celebration of the earth that way, and create more hiking groups and meeting groups once we get out of this, to appreciate the earth and develop an appreciation for the natural elements and a heightened awareness of it.
That really seems to be fundamental. John, thanks for that. If we as a population of the planet, and particularly here in the U.S., because that's the culture I'm most familiar with, if we would be able to have a greater appreciation for this wonderful speck of dust that we're floating through the depths of space on, I think we would have a better appreciation of what our role is in supporting that. What else?
Chris and I are really heavy into gardening. So if you have space in your backyard, and if you are able to plant a garden, it's a great hobby. It's relaxing, it's therapeutic. So if you can grow your own food, that would be something to think about. And then a lot of our food scraps actually go into a composting unit, and we use that in our soil to grow our food. So if you can possibly just think about growing your own food and having a garden, that's a great place to start.
There's even a movement to have gardens in the front yard.
That's true. They are starting to do that more and more now too.
Yeah.
Now, to create greater awareness of that movement, have it in your front yard if zoning allows for it.
And if zoning doesn't allow for it, get the zoning changed.
There you go. That's a great point. Yeah.
I would volunteer this maybe. A lot of people who are adults, be they young, middle, or older adults, get kind of set in their ways. It's kind of hard to change habits, and I understand that. But we have a whole other generation in terms of kids and grandkids that are coming up. And if they are raised with these principles, if they are instructed and educated in the principles of recycling, reducing carbon footprint, so forth and so on, then when they become adults, 10, 20, 30 years from now, whatever, they will already have that background. Whereas many of us, we're not raised with this sort of awareness. And it's harder when you get older to try and adapt. We can certainly do it, but if you're raised with it your whole life, I think it becomes a little bit easier, and it might have more impact.
Jeff Grafe is doing what Carol suggested, and there's also an abundant crop of dandelions in the front yard. We didn't plant those. course, but they are actually healthy for us. The leaves are a good source of greens.
I consider that my wildflower garden. I like dandelions. I was actually taking pictures of them yesterday.
Give you a whole bunch.
You know, one of the things that, and I do not want to get this into the political realm, but we are not being represented. The corporate interests are the primary represented, are primarily being represented, and getting money out of politics would shift the power back to the individuals. And the problem is that the interest, the landed interests, if you will, the lobbying core, and the money that is poured in through that corporate funnel into our legislative process is it's robbing us of that representation. So that's something that we're going to just need to continue to work on, is to get the representation back to us rather than the corporate interests. I'll get off my soapbox.
There's a big movement to get rid of the 2010 Supreme Court decision to make corporations like treated like people.
Yeah, the Citizens United.
That's it. Yes.
Ruling. Yeah.
Think of it.
And going back to the neighborhood gardens, and several people have mentioned that now, including Clarence's reference to lots of people, no number, but lots of people have not grown up with that agrarian background. And to have neighborhood gardens and to invite the neighbors to participate, to allow that communal garden, which speaks to gardens in the front yard rather than gardens in the backyard. So that gardening movement is one that certainly holds a lot of promise for us to lose our sense of separation from each other and to turn our attention to the care of those that are in our immediate neighborhood. But all of those immediate neighborhoods being interlinked, it is a network of local concerns that are building up. I think that the gardening movement is one that holds a lot of promise for that bringing us together in common cause. Anything else?
There's a lot of new gardens being developed. There are vertical gardens in downtown areas that take very little space, but they can equal the displacement of carbon dioxide with oxygen of hundreds of trees.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen pictures of this going on in other places. That's kind of in our cities. Help clean up our air.
And those tend to be very very communal kind of activities, even supported by organizations. But a vertical garden is something you can certainly set up yourself, particularly hydroponic vertical gardens. But yes, that's also a good one.
Well, and I think of supporting organizations that are working toward the reforestation of the planet, or even if it's in the Amazon or in Africa. We may not get to see those trees, but they are helping our planet stay healthy.
And across the West, we've got big swaths of burn that have occurred.
We need to consider bringing everybody along because some of that, the injustice and inequality lead to some of the forest burning when people are hungry and need farmland and that kind of thing. And here as well, I think it's just not going to work unless everybody is brought along.
Going back to what you were talking about, sharing and gardening, I just recently got on the Nextdoor app and have been following conversations there, and there's an amazing amount of sharing that's going on in our community. People who couldn't find seeds for their gardens, and other people volunteering and saying, you can have my extras. And you know, we got railroad ties, you know, does anybody need dirt? I mean, and this is all just a very local thing. Everything, there's all kinds of conversations, but examples of sharing. And even if you don't need the items asked for, or being given them away, giving them an applause for doing it is, I think, a way to just support the whole thing.
Are you all familiar with Nextdoor.com? Nextdoor Neighborhood is a movement of technology that links neighborhoods. Thank you for bringing that up, because that is an important function of technology that can bring us together more and more. So notice that we have offered a whole spectrum of ideas here on how we can be more effective as participants in the rejuvenation of our planet. The power is with us if we realize that we have the power. If we think that oh, you know, my vote doesn't matter, or I'm just a single person located over here on Longwood Avenue, and yeah, I know my neighbors, but we don't interact much. We have the power to revitalize this planet, to bring it into a state of superb health. And when we come to that realization, and I think that is important for each and every one of us, not just to realize, but to prophesize. We have the power, and if we allow ourselves the responsibility and the privilege of using that power, I think that we have a very bright future. We are in a period of chaos. The planet has been shut down, and there are parts of societies that are starting to open up again, and hopefully that will happen here in the not too distant future for us. But if we open up trying to go back to the old norm, we are losing our opportunity. We are squandering this huge investment that has been made by the virus to get us to stop, to reflect, to listen, to consider the possibilities. Because the possibilities are there for us if we choose to take advantage of them. And I encourage each and every one of us to think about how I, personally, each of us, personally, can have an impact on, even in a minuscule way, but to have an impact on how we revitalize this planet.
This morning when I got up, I found myself thinking of the dinosaurs and wondering if we were the next dinosaurs. Now, they were taken out by a meteor. They had no control over that. Now our planet is dealing with a pandemic. And we feel a little out of control right now because no one knows how to fix this yet. But this, for all I know, it maybe was brought on somewhat by our actions overall, but we have the opportunity to do something about it, to preserve our species on this planet, instead of turning it over to the next one. So we have abilities that the dinosaurs didn't have. Let's see what we can do.
Last summer was a record melting of the Greenland ice sheet. We see the ice sheets of Antarctica having a significant outflow, and indeed record melting. Sea level is rising. There is it's like turning a tanker in the ocean. It's very hard to get the direction shifted into an appropriate way. And sea level will continue to rise. We will have coastal areas that will be flooded. We will have a shift in our geography, not just in our social aspect, but in our geography. And there is going to be upheaval coming from that. And it is important for us, each individually, to take our opportunity now to ensure that what we envision for the future, and we may have different visions of that, but what we envision for the future is really up to us to come into a consensus and a movement towards the fulfillment of that vision. So as we settle into this realization that we're in trouble, the crisis is upon us, but we have the power. We have the power to come together, to share our vision, to allow ourselves the responsibility which we have and the authority which we will have to make the significant changes necessary for the vitalization of our planet. So let's settle into this sacred space. I've mentioned square breathing. An inhale on 8 counts, a pause at the top of the breath on 8 counts, an exhale on 8 counts, and a pause at the bottom of the breath for 8 counts. And repeating that square breathing several times. That conscientious breathing will allow our minds to settle into this quiet space. So let us begin. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Hold. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Hold. And continue at your own pace. As we allow our bodies to relax, our toes, the instep metatarsals, the ankles, the calves, the muscles around the knees, the thighs, the hips, up into our abdomen and the small of our back, to our torso, our shoulders, allowing our head to balance over our torso, allowing our neck muscles to relax, our jaw muscles, down to the lips, eyebrows, scalp, allowing the muscles in our biceps triceps, through our elbows and forearms, into our wrists and hands and fingers. Continuing our square breathing with the awareness that our body is fully relaxed. Let us consider the question in silence. What can I do? What is my power? What is my skill? How can I share? And then identify individuals that are available for each of us to help. Our neighbors, our loved ones, people that we see walking on the street. Breathing in, breathing out. Let us hold those questions in mind. We have the power to help, be it a major or minuscule effort. But the mere act of offering our help enlivens those to which we offer. They appreciate our concern. They realize that they are important. Breathing in, breathing out. We come back into this time and space with a greater awareness of what we can do, of who we can help, of the power that is inherent in each of us. We are grateful for this realization. And we accept our responsibility to be the doers, to be the tongue, the hands, the feet of God in this world, to express our dominion over those aspects of our lives that we can affect. Breathing in, breathing out. And for those of you who are so inclined to assist this ministry, let us share this offering blessing. Together, please. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. I give in love because I trust in God. And I'll ask you to mute your own microphone so that I can leave Doug unmuted and share in our closing benediction. Maestro? Take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me. And our prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is. And all is well. Well, thank you all. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It is a pleasure to have you in our presence. And we are open for fellowship. Grab your cup of coffee and let's hang out for a bit.
I will leave the candle on for fellowship.
All right.
Leave the candle on.
We'll turn it off.
Yes, just leave it on.
Want to turn that candle off?
Don't forget your vitamin C, selenium, and zinc.
Selenium and zinc. All
Who's
right.
that man's man?
You know,
vitamin C.
No, that's just curious.
Just take enough vitamin C, you will not get this.
I like your mask, Doug.
Cheers.
Oh, is that a bourbon?
Is that vitamin bourbon?
Oh, Bloody Mary. Okay.
No, it's iced tea. Oh, Bloody Mary. Okay, all right.
Okay.
There you go.
It's a hair of the dog. I can't drink like this.
Mine.
I can't drink like this.
It goes
I
with
need
the
a
Van
straw. Yeah.
A funnel, maybe?
A funnel.
Right, Doug.
I want to ask something.
Hi,
Hey guys, since we're just chatting right now, and you were talking about Earth Day and everything, Janine had gotten from us a pot of daffodil bulbs that were blooming gorgeously. Now they're all getting yellow, and we cut them back a little bit. What do I do with them to preserve them until I can plant them in the fall?
You don't have to wait. You can plant them now and just let them die down.
Do you cut off all the foliage because it's all pretty yellow now?
Go ahead and let it die down, and then when it's really dead, trim it back, let it sit in the ground,
it'll weather the summer, and then when it gets cold this winter, it'll reset itself and be able to rebloom next year.
Okay, so just let it dry out right now.
Let it dry out and die back,
Okay.
and then cut it off. Yeah.
Good. Okay, I've never
Just
done
like you
that.
would with tulips and crocuses are the same way. Tulips come up early, they bloom really fast. When they die back, you just cut them off and let them sit in the ground.
Okay, thank you.
There are people who dig them every year. Irises you have to dig every year. Once they died back at the end of the summer, you have to dig them out and then separate the bulbs out. You actually get more bulbs every year, and then you get a larger flower bed the next year.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So I shouldn't wait until the fall to plant them. I put them in this summer then.
Put them in the ground.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
It was.
David,
Speaking of gardening.
the ice melting and the waters rising, I think will force a lot of the Earth's population back into the country.
Yep.
Which will be very helpful.
There's a huge percentage of the population of the planet that live within 6 feet of sea level, and there's going to be a huge displacement. So buy up those long strips of land in Nevada. It'll be the new seashore.
Okay, it's 11:30. Right.
Just you might remember the poem "I'm the Mountain" and think of that, and realize that you are part of all that is and all that was.
Bert, does everybody know your background? What you did for a living?
Probably not. I'm a natural resource specialist. That's what I did.
Working for who?
Forest Service, Bureau of Indian Affairs, and Bureau of Reclamation.
Okay.
Interesting background. I wanted you to share that so that people have a better perspective of where you come from.
Yeah, I come from Mother Earth, and I love it. The Indians seem to like me too, and they call me Bigfoot and Super Squirrel because I was in charge of reforesting the forest, and my feet are size 15 and they're 6 and 7.
Were you hairy all over at an earlier age before you lost your hair? Are you the source of that myth of Bigfoot?
I don't know. I don't know, but I can't answer that. The Zunis now call me Woatsana, which is little bird, and because little bird, little because I was tall, and bird because my first name is Bert. So I guess that's the way they go. I'm not sure they laugh a lot of time when they say that, so it might not be that entirely. But I do like that "I'm the Mountain" poem. It says who you are, and when you think of anything you hurt yourself in so doing.
Well,
who wrote it, Bert?
Boy, you would ask me. I gave it to some of the people there in the church, but I don't remember. I just know it's good, and I know Barbara made me a plastic copy of it, but I remember it's in my mind so deep that I can't forget it. But my kids.
So deep I can't remember. That's
well, let's see. No, that's from Spoon River Anthology, I guess. No, that's not right. I don't know. I take it back. I forgot who it was.
Well, we had a meeting on Monday night, a discussion group that was fairly well attended, 24, 25 people as I recall, and it was the discussion was around this question of selling the building or not. Pam, were you or Carol, were you going to introduce this topic?
I can go ahead and introduce it.
Okay.
And then we'll open up the floor for further comments and thoughts. And then we'll discuss the voting process because there'll be more than one way to vote, depending upon what app you're on or what you're using today. So just to reiterate that last Monday, April 13th, we discussed over the course of approximately 2 hours the future of our ministry. And we understand that with bingo being our main revenue source, and that revenue source no longer available to us due to COVID-19, we discussed whether or not to sell our building. The sale of that building will pay off our debts, yet hopefully still retain enough funds to rebuild our vision for a new way of being together. This vote is understanding that we are not voting to dissolve our ministry, just voting whether or not we want to sell the building. We will still be together as Living Water Spiritual Community, but just in a different way. We're going to open up the floor to any further comments, thoughts, discussions that you wish to have before we place this vote on whether or not to sell, and then we'll discuss that voting process.
I would like to emphasize the future of bingo earnings. For those of you who were not in the Monday discussion, this might be a bit of a question for you, so I'll just address it up front. And that is that bingo makes money when we have sufficient players in attendance to cover our cost of the awards that we give away, which are pre-published. That is, we don't adjust the awards that we give away based upon how many people are in attendance. There is a cutoff, but that's for our purposes that's irrelevant. But we have to have about 90 people in our game in order to reach break even. We have had the pleasure of having anywhere on average 110 to 130, somewhere in there as our average earnings. Last year, in the calendar year 2019, we had in the neighborhood of $83,000 in net income from bingo. But we were averaging between the 110 and 130 numbers. With COVID, our concern is that even when we are allowed to come back into assembly, that there will be some significant portion of that, call it 120 people, that will say, well, you know, I've been going every day. I think I've been playing bingo every day, and which is, in fact, the case for many of the bingo players. But I'm just going to go once a week now. And what that's going to do if we are trying to replicate what we had pre-COVID in our bingo session, we will very likely be down close to break even, if not losing money. And losing money, of course, is not our our objective. So I do not see as being an intimate player in this bingo operation for the last 6, 7, 8 years. Yeah, almost 8 years, 7.5 years. I do not see us recovering that degree of population. So that's why we're saying that the bingo income is going to essentially disappear. Even if we were able to field the volunteer teams to man the bingo operation, which is a big question. Okay, I'm done.
Did anyone have any further thoughts or comments? Even if you want to offer up a prayer, just whatever you want to do before we place this vote, which I'm sure is very emotional for everybody.
I would like to know. I would like to know what the plan is for where the congregation would meet.
Interesting question.
First, we would have to decide on whether or not to sell the building. And then if it doesn't sell right away, we could still meet there. But then that would be a next question. So there's a lot of steps to this process. And whoever would like to help us find a new location to meet would be second after whether or not we decide if we're going to sell the building. There's a lot of things settled after that, but we will consider everyone in our community and hope that it is close to where our center is now and close to the times that we have now. Does that answer your question?
Not entirely. I mean, what do you, is there some amount of financial resources that the community has based on donations, for example, that would make it possible to rent a place or lease a place? Or, I mean, I have no idea of the order of magnitude of funds that are available for getting another place.
Well, that's all up for discussion. Depending on how much the building sells for, well, and we could even sell the building to somebody who will allow us to lease back the space that we're in now. It just depends on how the sale goes. We don't have a lot of funds aside from the equity in the building. We're hoping that the building would sell for, maybe $100,000 or $2,000 at least above what the mortgage is, and then we'd be able to pay off David's salary and other debts, and still our plan is to still have enough money to hire a minister for a year. So because one of the elements of this is David would like to be able to retire. His original contract, or the current contract, ends in August, but he agreed in our last business meeting to extend it another year, provided we were doing other things. So it's all, I know it's not entirely answering your question, but there are places in our community near where we are now that would work. But we just have to find those, and we would have to have a committee of people to help look for those.
Yeah,
in our early years, there were 3 different places where Living Water met. All of them were rented in one way or the other. This is the only building Living Water has owned.
Average time on the market for a commercial property such as ours, it appears to be something on the order of 6 months. So it's not as if we'll have to move the furniture out tomorrow, but the decision to sell is a necessary prerequisite to getting that ball rolling. And to answer your funds, Diane, answer your question, Diane, regarding funds, the bingo provides 57% of our income. Without so we had $110,000 in net revenue in the prior 12 months, 2019 basically, and without the bingo income of $83,000, we would have let's see, without the income, I'm sorry, it was 63 net 63,000. Is that right? Now I'm confused. I'm going to have to go back to the reports. Anyway, the significant amount of income, $63,000 net from bingo, 57% of the $110,000. That's right. And without that, we would have a total of $47,000 in revenue to support what amounts to be $2,700 per month mortgage, which eats up a significant amount of that $47,000.
Does Journeys for Conscious Living now have some sort of meeting space?
They're using our meeting space. They don't have an alternative meeting space. And I mentioned Journeys as being a potential buyer with leaseback opportunity.
Well, I think the people that were at the meeting on Monday were basically agreed that this is a path that we need to pursue on there. And this is what this meeting today is for, is to either make that vote or not make that vote. And I know that this is a hard decision. It's emotional. It's faith-based. It's all kinds of things put together. But we need to pick up our feet and move and do one thing or the other.
Yeah. There will be.
And we have tried to go over several years to address the issue of back expenses, basically David's salary and so forth, and the loans that he has provided to us to be taken care of. And I think that's only fair that we look at that as right up front along with the sale of the building. Now, can we cover the cost of the mortgage and those back expenses?
Still have seed money.
And still have seed monny available is a big question that we're faced with.
It's true. And really, the longer, not to interject urgency into it any more than needs to be, but we really don't know where the economy is going to go to once we go back to what the new normal is going to be. We don't know if we're going to be walking into a recession, if we're walking into something worse than that. I think it behooves us to make the decision and start moving on this as soon as possible to capture whatever value we have, whatever equity we can still get from the property, so that we can do some things in the future, so we have some options open to us. If we wait too long, those options may disappear. It may be a time now to make that decision, knowing that we're going to have some kind of a future. The state DNC, this last year, after our caucuses, we shut off all in-face conventions, caucuses, everything's been shut off. We've been doing it all on webinar and some other softwares. It's been very impressive how well that has worked. That virtual platform would be available to us as well. We could transfer into this virtual economy, this virtual world, and still maintain our fellowship. Some of these softwares, let's say a webinar, is very nice. It facilitates not only the discussions we have, but a lot more. And those are things we can look at. But I think we need to make the decision right now. Dick is absolutely right. We need to make that decision.
No, don't shut me off. Oh, okay.
Don't shut her off.
Wouldn't it be nice if we could just press the button like that and shut each other off? Anyway, I guess my thoughts on this are that we want to try and get ahead of the curve in case there is a downtrend, get our building on the market at a good price and not take the first offer that comes along, but we're in a prime area where we are there with light rail and everything. And don't wait until we see a slide in the economy, which I'm concerned about also, and just get going with this thing if we have to do it. And I guess the question is, do we have to? Do we not? And that's what we need to decide today and then proceed from there.
I'd like to reiterate a couple things that David mentioned or was asked. The revenue we're currently bringing in is basically barely covering his salary and the utilities. And you said that there was probably no chance that we'd get a loan from the Small Business Administration because of the bingo being such a large portion of our budget. Plus the fact that even if we get the deferral on the payments on the loan, there's no money to make the payments. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
We need it's a no-win situation. We have to go. We have to do it.
And know that, I mean, making this decision, we've already known for a while that we are financially dependent on bingo. And with that support gone and might not be coming back for some time, we need to make a decision to move forward. I think we're going to be okay. I just know we're going to be okay. It's just going to be different. We've transitioned to this platform and it's been okay. We can transfer to another one. It will be okay. It will be different, but it will be good.
I think a healthy spiritual community is self-sustaining anyway.
Yeah.
I don't think it's truly healthy to be dependent on an outside source like bingo. And so maybe at this point we can scale back financially. I mean, I personally will always be in favor of in-person gatherings. I would, if this became totally virtual, it doesn't mean I wouldn't be here, but I'd be looking for other communities where I could get together with people.
I agree.
But those are decisions to be made in the future.
Mm-hmm.
But we need to scale back to a point where we're supporting ourselves. And I know some people didn't even like the idea that bingo is essentially gambling. It really is. There are addicts, you know. So I think it's time to scale back and find our way.
Okay.
I agree.
Carol's ready to
Okay.
vote.
Yep. I think we're ready. I really appreciate all of your discussions, your thoughts, your ideas from not only today, but from last week. And yeah, it is an emotional time for all of us because we are closing
Ask if there is
a
anyone who
chapter
wants
in
to
our life
abstain.
and starting a new chapter
Question
really
mark.
as of today.
How are you going to deal with those who are multiple folks on a mic?
Carol will talk about
Period.
that.
Right now, our count is 32 and 5 other people.
Okay, I'm going to just go ahead and say a quick prayer before we do our vote, and then we'll explain the voting process. So it shouldn't take too much longer. Father, Mother God, we thank you so much collectively for the beautiful sacred congregants that are here today. Bless each and every one of us with that love and that light that shines down from the heavens above. We thank you for all this time that we've had together, and we thank you for the future times that we will have together, whether it be via Zoom or in person. Continue to shine that love and light within our hearts, our beings, our souls, our minds, so that we may indeed be the hands, the feet, and the voice of that higher power, and be a vision of light to all. Thank you. Amen.
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 So on the voting, you should see a chat button at the bottom of your screen. If you don't, just wiggle your mouse around until down at the bottom of your screen until that chat comes up.
Oh, the chat. Okay.
Okay, then you click on that chat. And if you want to send your vote only to Pam, you can do that because Pam's going to tally them. Or if you just want to go ahead and send it to everybody, then don't worry about who you're sending it to. Just send it to everybody.
That's fine.
And then you just type in yes or no.
And board members, we have families, and each person in the family participates.
I just mentioned that to Carol. I just did a tally. There are 5 extra people who are